important part is time management. So if you see, this particular thing is time management. Now with this time management, a very important thing comes as silly errors. Now, these are the two important things that I plan to discuss in today's topic. Now let's see. Now when I talk about time management, I'm talking about IG students first. So IGCSE, and basically for math. IGCSE math has two papers very well known to it. I'm talking about extended. Same thing can be applied to all formats. So P2 and P4, paper 2, paper 4. Paper 2, when I talk about, it is for 70 marks. And the time that you have is 1.5 hours. 1.5 hours, 60 plus 30, that is 90 minutes. Now, what should be done to this? How do you manage the time? Since you've been practicing papers since time, say since June, people are practicing papers. Now it's the time that they evaluate things and they mark for themselves as to how should time management go. And I would not only give you the time management part, but also give you a method to avoid and to completely destroy the silly error thing in your life. Now, how do you do that? This does not come, I mean, who makes silly errors? Who makes silly errors? When I say this, no one would try to do it intentionally. 2 plus 3, everyone knows it's 5. No one would write 7. Why would anyone write 7 there? But this happens in exams. This is just an example. So such thing happens. And why do such thing happen? It's a psychological part, unconscious part of your brains which works. So this is where I am trying to give you a data today. Let's see. 70 minutes, 70 marks, 90 minutes paper. What do I aim to do is for 1 mark, how much time do you get? So you can just divide 90, divide by 70, and you will get say around 1.28 minutes, right? After a thorough practice of at least 10 papers from your end, you could try to make a habit for yourself that you allot yourself only 1 minute per mark. That means you have a 10 marker question, you have a 12 marker question. The same thing applies for paper 4 also, right? The same thing applies for paper 4 also, right? So if you have a 10 marker question, you will allot yourself 10 minutes. Now, doing this, how does it work out? When you do this, what happens is for every mark you save 0.28 minutes, right? And then if you multiply this thing for 70 marks, this is approximately 20 minutes. That means if you are of a habit of giving 1 minute to 1 mark at the end, apne aap, right? That means with the calculation, you don't have to strive for it, right? This is programmed for you. So by itself, since you programmed yourself in such a way that it itself gives you 20 minutes buffer. Now this can only happen after a practice of certain papers. From the first paper onwards, do not plan to do this thing that I want to save 20 minutes. If you try to say that I want to do my paper fast, I want to save time, you will make mistakes to start with itself. So it is a habit that needs to be cultivated. So by a practice of at least 10 papers, you can try to make it a point that you give yourself 1 minute for 1 mark. And obviously 1 minute, 1 mark, so 70 marks, 70 minutes. Do you understand this? Right? And you have a 90 marks paper, so you save 20 minutes. Now, this saving of 20 minutes is a buffer time that is understood to you and understood to your brain very clearly. That I have a buffer time, of 20 minutes. Now, we are humans and not robots. So it is obviously every 10 mark cannot be completed in 10 minutes. At times you might exceed. For a 10 mark, you might take 12 minutes or might be around 15 minutes. So what has happened? What has happened in such cases? Since you've taken more time, do not worry. You need to tell yourself. You need to make your brain, the unconscious part of your brain, you need to make yourself. See, one thing for sure, try understanding. No one does it for a purpose, the silly error thing. No one writes 2 plus 3 as 7. It happens unconsciously with the certain factor known as the time factor, the stress, the pressure that is there in the exam. So how do you control that? You tell yourself that it's okay. I have taken 5 minutes more. It's fine. I have a buffer of 20 minutes. This will save you. This will give your brain a rest, saying that you have 15 more minutes as a buffer, right? And when you save yourself, for example, for a 10-mark question, if you take around 8 minutes, 9 minutes, you'll feel happy about it and you saved time, right? So you don't go on managing your time every minute, everything. You just start your paper. For example, you started your paper at 10:10. You completed the first question, you just write it down 10:25. That means you've taken 15 minutes. It's fine, right? How many marker was it? Okay, right? So this way you just go ahead, just keeping a track of the time throughout. Do you understand this? So when you keep a track of the time, you would be of a habit of saving this 20 minutes. This saving of 20 minutes, you'll say yourself, I have a buffer of 20 minutes. If you exceed this time limits, it's fine. You say to yourself, it's fine. I have 20 minutes buffer time. Now that is where this buffer time will tell your conscious, right? It will make you conscious about it, right? Will give a signal to your unconscious mind. It's fine. There is 15 minutes more. I've taken 5 minutes more out of 20. It's fine. We have 15 minutes. So this is a way you'll save yourself from doing those mistakes which are termed as silly mistakes, silly errors. You can completely remove them if you practice this particular work. This is psychological work. It is no gimmick thing, right? It is completely psychological. If you do this thing for yourself, this is a way you can save yourself from the silly errors. You need to tell whenever you exceed. It might be that you'll exceed, so it's fine. You'll tell yourself that time, as I said, you how you need to work on it, right? There are people who say silly errors. How do you remove silly errors? You practice, practice, practice. That is not a solution to it. Everyone knows, everyone practices, then why silly error happens? And this silly error happens to everyone. A person with the A star, a person with the A grade, a person with the C grade, a person with other grades also. So the silly error happens to everyone. And it is a big hole for everyone in their mark pocket. For the reason the silly error is something that you already knew. You knew the answer for this all question, then you made a mistake there. I hope you understood this part, right? The same working works, the same working goes for ICSE also. ICSE has a 80-mark paper. I'm talking about math again, right? 80-mark paper, and they have say around 2.5 hours. So that's 120 plus 30, 150 minutes, right? So what they need to do is for 1 mark, I give them 1.5 minutes. So approximately a 10 mark, they have a block of 10 marks, 3, 3, 4. For a block of 10 mark, they can always allot themselves 15 minutes, right? The same logic works for them also, right? So for a 80 marks, so that means into 8, so they will complete the paper in 120 minutes, saving themselves 30 minutes flat. That's great. If you save 30 minutes for yourself, that is your buffer time. You check your paper. Apart from checking your paper, whenever you move through your paper, you are confident that I have 30 minutes left out, since you have marked yourself at every corner, right? Obviously, once you complete your paper, this 20 minutes buffer time, what would you do? You don't waste your time in your exam and your boards. You check your paper, you check every details of things. That's how it works out. So you have to create this buffer. This will save yourself from what we say is silly errors, right? So people saying that there's no solution to the silly errors, you have to be careful. Everyone is careful in the exam. Everyone practices. Then how come you avoid the silly errors? This is the only way. I hope this is useful to everyone. So guys, that would be all.